it's interesting because, to me, even though the movie deals with the viral apocalypse that comes from the end of the last film, the movie is not a post-apocalyptic movie. What it is it's a story that starts in the world of apes. And you see what they've built, and you see this kind of primitive but majestic kingdom, and you see a family, and you see a sort of a way in which they're coming into being. And then they are thinking and wondering in this new creation, are the humans gone? Because it's all from their point of view. And then not too long into the story, they realize that there are still humans, and it becomes a question of survival. And that's what the whole story becomes about, is how can these two populations coexist, and will it lead to violence? And so in that sense, I really don't think it's strictly a post-apocalyptic movie. That's just an aspect of one part. That's what it looks like in the city. But it's really much more about the nature of these two populations and sort of whether or not they can find a way to live together. Did I study the apes? We spent time with, Andy and Terry Notary, who is our movement specialist. He's incredible. They showed me what it is to be an ape. We had a whole training sort of camp where the actors get together, and that one of the things that we try to do, because the story is so much about this family of apes in terms of the ape story, one of the things that Andy wanted to do was for us all to get together and do rehearsals in ape character and to create what this sort of world felt like, what articulation was like, language. The thing that was important to me was that the story not jump too far in a certain way from where things were in Rise, because in Rise, when Andy says no in Rise, I think it's so startling, it blew me away. And I think that was exciting to me was watching the apes learn how to speak, watching all of that happen. And obviously there's only 3-4 words in the first movie. We wanted this to be somewhere along the continuum toward the 68 movie, where of course they're fully conversant. And so that's really what it's about. And one of the things that we did at the beginning was just spend time exploring exactly that.
Yes. Hi, for Keri Russell. Now that you've done Mission Impossible and The Americans, were you ready to have a full-on action heroine role in the Ape Revolution?
Am I a full action hero in this?
Damn straight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
Very Laura Croft. No.
Very. Yeah. That's so what Matt does, Laura Croft.
What she is what we try to do is to tell a story about all of these characters in a way that, even though there's grand action in the story, and she does have to do some grand action in the film, it's really about the thing that was exciting for us about it, and the thing that blows me away about the first movie and why I was so excited to do the movie and work with Andy, was that it's really about character. And the reason that Jason is here and the reason that Keri is here is because we wanted characters who had the level of depth that Andy brought to the first film. And so, she brings some action, but really she's here because she brings a lot of character and depth.
I climbed that ladder down fast. I was fast, wasn't I?
Pretty fast, yeah.
Pretty fast. I wasn't that fast. But no, it is what Matt said. I mean, it's more of an emotional story, I feel.
Can you talk about how emotional the story gets for your character then?
To me, it's really a story of survival, is where I'm coming at it from. And the thing I sort of was reading a little bit about before I started was kind of more this woman, this war journalist, like someone who's been through war and has lost a lot of people. And I think that's sort of where my character is. You've lost so many people that you love and that are dear to you, and then you're just trying to create an existence from that, at that place, and then trying to survive. And I think that's the great thing about the ape community as well. They're just trying to do the same. And that's where the story meets.
Thank you. Ali from Empire.
Hi there. This is just a general question about whether we'll see overt references to previous Apes films, or will it be trying to forge its own path?
Well, let's put it this way. We don't do it in a sort of winking way. There is a reverence to, first of all, the franchise is something that, as a kid, I was obsessed with. I wanted to be an ape. I mean, we all love those movies so much. But what was done so brilliantly, what they did in Rise, was to take it and they call it a reboot, a reinvention. I always wanted to be a gorilla when I watched the first movie. And what was amazing about what Andy did and Weta did and Rupert did and what Dylan did in Rise was that you did become an ape. You became Caesar. You cared about him and you connected to him. And really the thing that we wanted to carry forward was the emotionality within the grander sort of context of this story that movie had. And you all know, of course, that it leads to the Planet of the Apes, not the Planet of the Humans and the Apes. And so the story is really about where does this fit along that. And so in that way, it really references just the knowledge of what that first film is. And within that, there are sort of certain things within the canon. I guess you might consider them almost commandments and things that it does reference, but we don't really do it in a... they did it very cleverly in the first film. There were a lot of... The Icarus goes up, which is great. I mean, but our references are much more about trying to sort of create a context for the world that Andy leads.
Next question.
Hi. It's kind of a twofer. For Matt, I was wanting to hear from you about the mirrored way you're referencing what's going on with the humans as well as what's going on with the apes. It's sort of similar. And to Andy, you've done creatures that are completely fictional, as in Gollum. You've done King Kong, where it was very much a realistic ape. Now you're kind of doing a hybrid that's never really been done before, of the evolution of a creature that's real into something that's never been. Can you talk about how you had to go, what you went through to create this?
Why did you do that first?
I mean, I have to say, when because of the way that Caesar came into the world and was brought up by human beings, for me it was always, he was an outsider. He was always an outsider. There was a sense of not knowing who he was. He was brought up by a human being and believed himself in many ways to be a human being, had many human attributes, learnt human belief systems through his father, who was... James Franco's character Will, who he believed to be a good man, and so although I mean, I'll never forget reading the script for the first time and seeing the trajectory of that character, the arc of that character, and thinking, what an amazing character, and then realizing, of course, and it's an ape, and take that away, and you'd still have an amazing character who's going on a phenomenal journey. But here was this creature who was going through, and what I think people responded to were all these recognizable human emotions and feelings of being an outsider or being rejected or being, and then finding his people, and so now going through into this next stage, it's very much about Caesar having become leader and how and not throwing away everything that he has grown up with as a human being. And so in a sense, he's both finding his inner ape by galvanizing this group of orangutans and chimps and gorillas, 2,000 strong, but also trying to evaluate on a daily basis and not become an absolute leader, but be open and empathetic. And how can I respond to this situation that needs attending to? He's also a father now. He's got a teenage son. He's also now got an infant child. He has a wife. He has a council. He has a very, very big community that he's responsible for in their survival. And then he has the choice and reaction to human beings who he adores in a sense, and still deep down wants to be able to communicate with, and so for me it's been, and then on top of that, how to communicate that. And one of the things that were the things of last time round was one of the beauties of it that Matt alluded to was the fact that they didn't speak. So it's a very pure, innocent way of experiencing what their thoughts and feelings were, the apes in the last movie. This time round, there is an evolution. There is an evolution in linguistic terms, and finding that has been one of the biggest challenges. How Caesar is, spiritually, philosophically, how he is as how he commands, how he responds on a personal level. So we worked very, very in great detail in terms of creating that level of sophistication versus finding language. So he communicates through the sign language, the American Sign Language that he was taught, which has become a way of creating, a unifying way of speaking with the other apes. Then also human words that he's beginning to be able to use. And then all of the other apes too are dealing with learning, to use just gesture and ape vocalizations. And of course, the younger apes who are growing up in this society are learning to speak, better than and faster than their parents, because that's what happens. So it's a very, it's a very rich and complex world, I think, Caesar exists in, and is pressured and is hugely under pressure as the movie goes on with.
Good afternoon. My question is for Jason. It's very similar to what Keri was talking about before. You've been a very successful, basically journeyman actor for such a long time. How does it feel to finally be the lead action hero in a big budget franchise like this? And can you also talk a little bit about the character you play?
It feels good, you know. I mean, 4 months in, it hurts, you know. It's been a, you know, I think we've all put ourselves really out in this film, and yeah, I mean, it feels really nice, you know. I mean, I've known Dylan Clarke, and who gave me a call one day. I remember I was driving, I pulled over, and he said, "Look, you know, like you take a look at Planet of the Apes." And I thought, "Oh, fuck yeah." Excuse my language, but and you know, I play in a funny kind of way. I play, you know, a different mirror to Caesar, I guess. I mean, there's many ways to talk about that, you know. I play Malcolm, who was an architect, you know, who has a son who lost a wife, who, you know, now has a new partner, who is trying to, you know, find a way for his family to stay alive, and then that broadens to finding a way to his family will only stay alive if his community stays alive, so he assumes a role in that, and then, you know, through the story, in a very funny way, I guess he finds his inner ape as well. You know, that you know, through the 10 years that we've had this apocalypse and this virus and everything, you know, this civil, you know, war and everything else that's gone on, that you know, he's lost a lot, and he finds a lot back through his interaction out in the woods. If that makes sense, without giving away plot.
It does make some sense. Thank you.
Jenny?
Hi. Jason, I wanted to ask a follow-up quickly. Also, when you said, fuck yeah, excuse my language, were you referring to the fact that you loved the franchise and you were a fan already? Was it the role? Can you talk a bit more about, you know, whether there was any hesitation for you, or this was the role you really wanted?
No, there was a correlation. I mean, the film... I'd done Zero Dark 30, and I'd worked with a guy called Greg Shapiro, who I trusted a lot. And after the phone call with Dylan, I spoke to Greg, you know, and he just said, "Who's the director?" And I said, "Matt Reeves." And he said, "Do it." You know, and at that point, you know, I knew Matt's films, and there was no question about it. Really, I mean, you know, I loved that. You know, I hadn't read at that point. I'm thinking, "My Charlton Heston, great," you know. But yeah, it's deep within our psychology. You know, as a kid, I was a bit more disturbing for me. I was very disturbed by it when I was younger. But you know, so there's that level of, you know, you watch the film again and you go, you know, I really like this. I really like what this is doing. I want to be part of this on a number of levels. And then there's the part as an actor where, you know, you go, yeah, it's great that Fox and Dylan and Matt and Andy, who have done all this work and are putting a lot of money and effort and, you know, into something they love, want you to be part of that. You know, it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, thanks.
We have time for one more question, if you'll step up.
Hi, Joe McCabe, Total Film. This question's for Matt. Matt, with Cloverfield and you know, Let Me In, you've demonstrated a great facility for balancing reality and fantasy and delving into these different fantastic genres. This would be your biggest challenge yet, I would think, because there's so many variables involved. Can you talk about that, about finding, you know, the reality in so much of this, and still giving you know, the fun and entertaining, you know, escapism that audiences, you know, want in a film like this?
Sure. I mean, to me, the great thing that you have going for you immediately is that they're apes. Like, you've got that. So, and it's amazing what Weta does and how they can transform. But the key to the whole thing is what's going on under it, and what Andy does and what the other actors do when they're playing apes in a way that sort of is emotionally authentic. And when I first got involved, I felt, well, first of all, it's a world that I have been in love with since I was a kid, and I was really affected by what Andy had done and what the story was in the first film, in Rise. And I was like, well, what is that about, and how does that happen? And I asked them actually to show me the footage of everything that Andy had done, wearing the markers, wearing the camera on his face, wearing this crazy gray suit that they wear. And I just wanted to see what he was doing, and then I wanted to watch it up against the footage. And I realized that the reason I was affected emotionally was because Andy, regardless of the fact that he was acting like an ape, he was just a brilliant actor, and that it was just so emotionally real. And the thing that is always important to me in whatever I do is trying to find the reality of that. And I think the key is that you take the one element that is the fantastical, which is that they're intelligent apes, and you let that be the one fantastic element. And everything else is about trying to sort of realize it in a way that feels grounded and real. We went out and we shot, the first film was shot much more on the stage. It was a smaller scale film. This film, because of what they're creating, this Ape Kingdom, is out in the woods. So we went out into the woods. I wanted to use as much available light as possible so that you could create all that reality. And then, of course, the key to everything was just about the emotional reality of the characters that these actors play. And so once you do that, you forget about the fact that they're apes. That's the thing. Like, we tried to create a story that we would connect to, that would mean something to us, and then on top of that, you look back and go, oh yeah, and they're apes. And that's the thing that takes you to this other level, because it allows you to tell a story that matters to you, because you have the cover of the genre to say, well, what's going on and how is this happening? Oh, this is this conflict. It's all between these humans and these apes. And that's the way I tried to approach it.
Thank you.
And on that note, we need to end it. We need to get you over to Hall H so we can come and see you there. So thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Jason. Thank you, Matt.